my question for tonight that I'd like to pose to all of us as we begin is our election is a week away. And I was going to ask you all how you were going to vote, but then I thought maybe that wouldn't be the thing to start with. But I think it's something that maybe all of us are thinking. It seems to be getting more and more conversation. It's just that our conversations with each other when it in these kind of civic matters becomes more contentious, more divisive. And I'm wondering where you see hope for that. Where do you see maybe a return to being able to have an exchange of ideas where we have different ideas, where it doesn't mean that you need to demean someone or belittle someone because they think differently, but you can have respect for each other and figure out how to make decisions as a community or as a country together. So that is quite broad. So maybe that'll give you something to think of, but I'm looking for hope for us as a culture, as a community. Mine is this. I will start just to give you all time to think as well. But when I was growing up, I just returned from my farm that I grew up in Minnesota. And after our church service on Sundays, my dad and my aunt, who was a county commissioner, my dad was the chairman of our local school board, and my great aunt was a state representative. They would all skip Sunday school, and I'm outing them publicly now so they can all hear about it. And they would go across the dirt road to our farm, and they would have these conversations around the table with coffee and some bars. They're called bars in Minnesota, some sort of treat. But they would have, and they came from different political persuasions, but they would have all these kind of discussions back and forth. And to my knowledge, they didn't leave with their feelings hurt at the end of it. They would disagree, but they would talk through things. And as a young boy, I was fascinated with listening to them. But I asked them when I was home, am I remembering that correctly? Like, you guys would have these conversations every Sunday, but you wouldn't leave, feeling like you had been not listened to or demeaned in any way or disrespected in any way. And so they said yes, but that's what I want us to return to, rather than all of us being in one of two camps and lobbying things and not understanding each other. So there's my hope for our next week and for our next year as we move into this election. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I'll go next.
Oh, you first, Walt.
Well, I have 32 years in the Navy, so it's probably not too hard to guess how I'm likely to vote. But I'm also sort of a fatalist. On the bright side, I remember that we got through 4 years of Jimmy Carter and the country was still alive and well. So I think there is hope no matter what happens.
For me, I think my hope comes, I have 3 millennial children and they're adults now, all of them. And I watch them and they don't find this acceptable. And as a baby boomer, we were supposed to make the world change, and we did, sometimes not for the better. I'm more than happy to pass the baton over to this next generation coming behind because I think they have their heads on straight. So that's my hope.
God bless you. I hope it is too.
Phil.
I think that, the big thing in terms of respect for, the other side or expecting respect is that if I feel that the other side is coming at it from the standpoint that they genuinely are wanting this country to get better and to be better. I may disagree with their end result. I may disagree with their methodology, but I think I can respect that they're coming at it from the position of, I want this country to be better in the long term for the next generation and generation after that, on whatever level, environmental, commercial, military, whatever it is. If they're looking at that, I may again disagree with it. If I think that they're coming at it from the standpoint of what's in it for me, how can it be for me, or from a disingenuous standpoint of, I just want to win the argument. I don't actually care what you're saying. I'm just there to argue. Then, it's like I've gotten past the point like I was in college where, I love to argue and debate for the sake of debating. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I do that every day. I don't need to do it for fun. But if it's a matter of let's exchange ideas for constructive purpose, to share ideas, broaden each other's horizons and go from there, I think I'm much more inclined to do that rather than I'm right and you're wrong and this is why, my way or the highway. As long as, I guess, bottom line is, as long as I know that the other side's willing to listen to me and isn't going to just be, slinging bombs the whole way, then I'm going to be more inclined to do that.
Thank you, Phil. John.
Yeah, Darren, I think my answer to this is pretty straightforward, and I don't think it's changed in this cycle as it has in the past. Is let's get involved locally and build a community that each of us locally wants to live in. I think the quote actually outside my window right now is, let's build yourself a life that you can't wait to wake up to. And so I like to use things like that on a daily basis. So I like to do that in this community that I serve, work in, live in, play in, and all this country is a community of communities. While I will respect that what works in one community may not work in another, as long as there are still committed people locally trying to improve it, that's what I'm going to work for. And in order to break down some of the issues that we see today, I'll invite anybody I know to help make this place better, one day at a time. So if we disagree on how to do that, let's go do something together and figure out how it works or doesn't, and we'll learn from it and implement it into the future. So that's how I ended up right here today.
Thank you very much. Pat Hatchell.
I'm the last one. So I deal with a lot of people every day from all walks of life. And I'll tell you, I don't think there's a split what people think there are. I think sometimes the media makes it out to be much worse than it is. I deal with people from the left and the right and everywhere in between. You know what? The vast majority of these people get along really well. They really do. And you watch the news or whatever, and you think everyone's out there hating each other from every different race, religion, whatever. And that's just not true. So I have a lot of hope because almost all the people I see are actually nice, decent people that can talk intelligently. They want what's best for everybody. Both sides do. And they get along and they can do it. The stuff you see isn't what happens with most people. So it's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you, Pat. Hey, Tom, welcome back to the board. Introducing Tom Bullock, and you're on.
Hey, thank you. It's nice to be back. I think Pat Hatchell just hit the nail on the head. All of you made astute commentary about how, we need to be more inclusive and accepting. But I think for the most part that we are, and I think the strongest among us will lead and help others see that as well, and treat each other with respect. And, like they did in the old days, come back and have conversations like they did in Minnesota, Darren. I mean, I think we need to be more respectful of each other in that way.
Mike or Brian, would you like to add anything?
Well, what Pat said was probably the most encouraging thing that I've heard in a long time, because you're right. All you see is division on the news. But if people on the street and people that you're coming in contact with are more reasonable than they're being depicted to be in the news, then I'm encouraged.
Brian, would you like to add anything? Sorry to put you on the spot. Your silence told me no, but I'm still calling on you.
I have nothing to add beyond the wisdom of the board members. Great.
All right. Well, thank you.
One of us all, right?
Thank you for engaging that question. Approval of minutes. We have our minutes from our last board meeting on September 21st. Can I have a motion to approve?
So motion.
Thank you, John. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Pat. Any comment? Any corrections, any questions? All that. All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay.
Tom Bullock
All right.
abstains.
Thank you, Tom. Noted. Public comment. For those of you who would like to make public comment, at the beginning of our COVID time and doing these Zoom meetings, we had moved our public comment to the end of the meeting, just for kind of figuring things out and being able to try this new technology. I wouldn't say we have the hang of it now for certain, but we are moving it back to the front of our meeting. And so for any of you who are in the attendees participants area, if you raise your hand, we will give you your 3 minutes for any kind of public comment that you would like to make for our meeting tonight. Carla, I see that your hand is up, but we do have you on our next comment or our next section for agenda item number 4 to talk about the perk. And I see that you put your hand down, so I'll assume that you don't want to say anything for the public comment. Any public comment? Okay, let's move on then to item number 4. No one else saw any comment there, right? Or any kind of notice that someone wanted to speak? All right, we will move on to item number 4 to look in on our regional project status reports. First, we'll start with the county, and I believe that will be Eric Baker who will be presenting for us. Eric, are you?
Okay, let me find Eric and bring him in just a moment. I'll stop sharing. I will pay attention to participants. Eric Baker. Promote to panelist. And unmute Eric. There you go. Is there anybody else that will be speaking with you?
No, I am all alone.
All right.
All right. Well, I just want to confirm the amount of time for each one of us, 10 minutes, then Q&A, or how much time do I have?
The time will vary for the different projects just because of different items that you're addressing, Eric. Take the time that you need, but we have a long meeting ahead of us, so your brevity is appreciated.
Not a problem. I'll try to leave some oxygen left over for everybody else. I'm going to share my. I'm disabled from screen sharing. Mike, can you?
Let's see what I can do about that. Oh, I'm in the wrong place here. Panelist. Eric Baker. More.
Sorry to be a problem child right off the bat. Oh,
Right.
There we go.
Got it?
I am free.
All right.
All right. So let me get this up and running. to thank everybody very much for this time today, and thank you for the partnership with the Public Facilities District in our Port Gamble project. Can everybody see the screen that I have up?
Yep.
Big blue. Okay. Yep. Excellent. I understand that we have some new board members, so you kind of wanted us just to kind of go over a little, kind of briefly what our project is about, and then kind of launch into some other financial related matters. So just to kind of refresh everybody, our project is associated with the Port Gamble Heritage Park. That is the 3,500 acre park directly to the south of Port Gamble in North Kitsap. One of the things that has been made abundantly clear by COVID, but was in existence before COVID, was the economic impact that outdoor recreation has been bringing to both the state of Washington and our region. The importance of outdoor recreation brings in about $26.5 billion in direct revenues statewide, and that's on an annual basis. When you take a look at indirect costs, that number is almost $40 billion. Obviously, some of our national parks take a big chunk of that, but it is starting to spread throughout the region and Kitsap County. There's been substantial growth in this industry over the last 10 years. And I don't know about you, but it seems like everybody who's been on some form of vacation or trip with their family since COVID has been around has been showing pictures from some national park, some state park, some trail system, some mountain biking opportunity. COVID has made outdoor recreation even more important than it ever was before, and an economic engine as people are looking for ways to get healthy, to stay out of the way of COVID while still spending time with their families. The Port Gamble Heritage Park, again, like I mentioned, is 3,500 acres located here just south of Port Gamble. It includes 1.5 miles of natural saltwater shoreline, perfect water trails and kayaking. It has 65 miles of ad hoc trails. Those range from goat paths to logging roads. And then the phased acquisition of this has been going on for some time. This project has been a number of years in the making, but we had successfully leveraged about $11 million of local, state, and federal funding to the acquisition of all of this property. Now the question is, what is the future of this property, and how can we leverage it for Kitsap County, both for its community, for tourism, and for its economy? This is broken up into a number of different components, the first of which is a mountain biking ride park. For people who are unfamiliar with what those are, that is a more active recreation opportunity with a whole bunch of different types of trail amenities and training opportunities. We have mountain biking opportunities throughout Kitsap County, but what you'll find is that this is a place where families from small children all the way up to teenagers can come to one place. They can park, they can go have a good time at the park itself. It features opportunities for multiple skill levels. It is going to be 160 acres in size. Probably the closest that we have to this type of amenity in the region is Duthie Hills, which is located out in Issaquah. That is a much smaller park with a much smaller trail system being proposed. But even at that, they bring in more than 100,000 riders a year. Those 100,000 riders come in, they spend money, and they enjoy themselves in an opportunity that they don't find other places. Obviously, Kitsap County is in a smaller population base, so if we could just achieve 50,000 folks of this, that is going to be a substantial economic draw to Kitsap County. The second element is a regional connector between Seattle and the Olympic Peninsula called the Sound to Olympics Trail. Basically, there are two prongs of this. The one that the county is most focused on is the one that leaves the Kingston Ferry Terminal, travels through the North Kitsap Heritage Park, travels through the Divide property, and then reaches the Port Gamble property. Kitsap County has done a feasibility study for again, a shared use path. This is intended to be 12 feet in width that allows pedestrians, it allows people of multiple abilities, as well as mountain bikers, regular bikers, to get off the highway while moving north through the Port Gamble block, while also providing opportunities for equestrian users, which is another big component of our community and another big component of a growing economic sector. This trail has been included in the Rails to Trails program that again connects the Discovery Trail to Seattle. It's also now part of the Leaf Line program, and some of the successes from those designations and the participation of the Public Facilities District I will be able to show you here in a moment. Another component is the Stottlemyre Trailhead. We focused a lot on the Ride Park, which is located up here to the north, connecting up to the Port Gamble town site. We focused on the Sound to Olympics Trail, where the initial phase is this red looped area. But this is a 3,500 acre park in a southern element, which is the Stottlemyre Trailhead down on, well, of all things, Stottlemyre Road is the southern connector to this park, which allows folks to park, ride, and will eventually connect up to Kingston, this direction, but then also all the way up to the mountain biking facility and Port Gamble, and then ultimately across the Hood Canal Bridge to the Discovery Trail. This is parking for cars and horse trailers. Again, our equestrian community is again growing in its energy and also becoming a significant economic driver on both sides of us, both east of the Puget Sound and the Olympic Peninsula. But as I indicated, this is a 3,500 acre park. I've talked about 160 acres and a trail. We know that these are the core elements of this park. These are the things that are going to help draw people here. But the question is, what can this area be beyond that? 3,500 acres is a lot of land. We do have some encumbrances on the properties, what we can and can't do. So what we really need is we need a master plan to show exactly what other possibilities can leverage this, again, world-class mountain biking park, a shared use off-road trail that connects up to the eastern Puget Sound. How can we leverage this? And we need a plan to do so. We need to avoid any natural features. We need to ensure we're utilizing what are some gorgeous viewscapes on that property. When you get to the top of the ridge, you can see all the way to the Cascades and all the way to the Olympics. We need to be able to leverage those. And then what other types of uses could be allowed on this property? We have no idea going into this. We are doing a full public process for this 3,500 acres to ensure that we know exactly what the community would like to see and ensure that the economic viability, not just of what the Public Facilities District has already committed to this project, but what additional opportunities could be made available for additional asks and how we can leverage that to obtain additional money. What you see here are just some of the options, from adventure courses to campgrounds and yurts. This is a yurt facility that you see here. To something maybe as big as a lodge or an environmental learning center. This is a very, very pristine area. Again, 1.5 miles of natural shoreline. Cultural resources of the Port Gamble, Sklallam, and Suquamish tribes can be leveraged in here as well. There are so many opportunities. This master plan is both going to give us the economic background, but also is going to give us what exactly is best for our community as a whole.
Hey, Eric.
I'll pause there for any questions.
Yeah. Hey, Eric. Phil Havers here.
Yeah.
I was actually just up there, actually yesterday, coming off of the old Port Gamble Road, hiked in about, 2 miles or so. And I guess the question is, I saw there was a bunch of clear cutting up there. Huge swaths, including some recent stuff.
Yes.
What's part of the park? Because I like the design and the photos there, but those all showed trees, and there were huge stands of clear cut. So, and not only that, but it also showed PUD water and fire hydrants going in there. I wasn't sure if maybe I was on the outskirts of the park area and this is part of a huge planned development, or if that's part of the park, or what is that? Because everyone was like, what is this development and clear cut?
When we acquired the property, we had to make a choice. We could buy the trees and the land and acquire probably about 600 acres overall. Or we could purchase the land and leave a timber easement over the top of it, which gives us the opportunity to buy the trees over time, but does allow Pope Resources, now Rainier, to come in and cut trees at varying intervals. That only lasts for 30 years, and at that point, we own the land outright. That is what gave us the ability to take $11 million and turn it into 4,000 acres, 3,500 to 4,000 acres that can be preserved forever. We know they're not going to turn into homes. We know they're not going to turn into McMansions. We know that it is always going to be public ownership.
What are the hydrants and PUD water hookups for?
That actually is, there is a water connection that runs all the way up to Port Gamble. That ridge that you see there is probably the largest deposit of sand in all of Kitsap County. The infiltration is amazing in that area, and we are currently looking to run, well, actually there is a water line that connects up to the Port Gamble town site. That is doing away with a bunch of what were surface wells that are located in our ownership. These surface wells were environmentally damaging and not particularly good for drinking water purposes, as well as it allows the PUD to do a little more water planning, where they can move water around their system versus they have a lot of water in central Kitsap. They don't have as much water in North Kitsap. It gives them a greater ability to move water from place to place, not have to draw so much water from Kingston. If Kingston grows, to be able to move it from some other location. You're not looking at development that's going to be going in around those pipes. That is just the transmission line that is in place. And we're working to ensure that our trail system works around those cleared areas as much as possible so we can limit the amount of clearing. But as I did mention, we do have an agreement with Rainier that we are able to buy back trees over the next 30 years. And we have a number of organizations that are currently working towards that end right now.
Yeah, I saw a sign that said, you know, end of clearing area. Are they going to be doing more out there? I mean, it's a huge swath. Or are they taking a couple of years off, letting some of that area grow up?
The way that forestry works is they don't cut a whole bunch all at one time. They do one clear cut and then they let it sit for 5 years. It's called greening up of the area. So over the course of time, you're going to be seeing cuts, years of no cuts, and then a cut again. One thing I do want to highlight about the timber stands in the Port Gamble forest is they were built for monoculture forestry. They are built solely to make money off of trees. They don't provide a natural forest. They don't provide diverse habitat. Ultimately, if you take a look at some of those stands that were in place, it looked more like something out of a bad fairy tale. The trees are dead except for the top portions. There's a lot of clearing that it would need to be done even if we had owned the trees. So the question being, do we end up paying a premium for trees, end up with less land, potentially losing wildlife connectivity and trail connectivity if homes are built in certain areas, or do we secure the land forever and then work to obtain the trees after the acquisition? And that is part of the plan, but not part of what I'm asking the Public Facilities District to participate in. Are there other questions? I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint and move into a Word document that has a few more numbers associated with it. All right. With that, get out of this. Okay, can everybody see this much blanker document? Looks like Word. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thumbs up. Gotcha. Okay. Good. This kind of walks through the various steps of this project over time. The first of which was stage one. I think we talked a lot about that right now, which was the acquisition of the land. When we first talked to the Public Facilities District, we had already been 7 years into this project, acquiring all of the land necessary to achieve what we want to achieve. That roughly has been $11 million that has been completed to date. And we are again trying to obtain additional money for acquisition of trees, healthy stands of trees, not necessarily the lesser value of trees. Back in November of 2019, we approached the Public Facilities District, and you very graciously provided us over $1.6 million towards the elements that I pretty much just discussed. That was the ride park, That's the Sound to Olympics Trail final design and permitting of the upper portion of it. That's the portion that connects the ride park to town, and is also the most challenging portion of the Sound to Olympics Trail. Again, we want this trail to be available to as many people as possible, differently abled individuals, so it isn't just a matter of doing it as a crow flies. We need to design this around certain topography to minimize grades and make sure that we're staying out of environmental features. So as you're looking at the ride park, roughly between the trails, training area, bathrooms, and parking and access, it's about $1.5 million. Design of the Sound to Olympics Trail was another $500,000. The Stottlemyre permitting instructions, another $2,200, and then the master plan I discussed was another $375,000. All in all, of the 1.6 that you're providing, the overall project in this first phase, which runs through December 21st, though due to COVID and due to a number of other things, that schedule is becoming more aggressive as we're having problems getting volunteers out to do certain work, and as well as other related issues. It is a $2.6 million overall project, of which the Public Facilities District is participating to the tune of $1.6 million at this point. But one thing I want to highlight is this was our original ask, and again, we are very, very thankful for it. We are going to be providing the feasibility and economic value of both this investment, but also what comes out of the master plan. And as I'd indicated before, there could be campgrounds, there could be adventure parks, there is of course going to be the remainder of the Sound to Olympics Trail. Obviously, the original investment gets the design and permitting completed, but we need to construct that over time. And that's one of the exciting things I kind of want to discuss right now. Thanks to, and now these are future stages beyond what we have discussed in our interlocal agreement. It's the construction of that upper portion of the Sound to Olympics Trail. Once it's designed, once it's permitted, the overall cost was roughly a little over $3 million. Thanks to the commitment of the Public Facilities District, we've been able to leverage that investment to the tune of $1.9 million minimum towards the construction of this portion through STP, which is Surface Transportation Program funding. That's federal transportation funding. Again, without the Public Facilities District participation, accessing those additional pots of funding are not available. And it's that type of partnership that is going to be important as I discuss some of these other opportunities moving forward. So I could see the county coming back for, on this element, potentially another $1 million from the Public Facilities District to hopefully make this project whole and connect up that component. Let me pause there. If anybody have any questions, I'm running out of oxygen here in my own room. So again, as part of phase 3, it is the design and permitting of the southern portion of the trail moving down to Stottlemyre. And then the master plan is going to come up with recommendations where, how much, and how should additional economic development opportunities be developed. Here's another campground using yurts. A mountain biking ride park of regional significance is going to draw people who are going to come from further away than they're going to want to drive, and they're going to want to find some place that they could stay. A potential campground facility located on the site could provide that type of amenity, possibly beyond campgrounds to a lodge facility. Again, this is all going to be dependent on the master planning process, but as those investments come forward, we are going to be leveraging private funding. We're going to be leveraging additional public funding from both the state and federal government. But there's also a strong possibility that some of these projects could greatly benefit from Public Facilities District funding. What you see here in red is just the breadth of the overall project. Obviously, this is not what we're asking for the Public Facilities District for, but some element of this project could use an additional few $1 million as we move forward and as we phase this construction. That would depend on exactly what we're looking to build. Campgrounds would be less. Lodges and environmental learning centers would be more. All of those would be based on future, I use the word future, economic benefits and economic asks from the Public Facilities District. Stage 4 is the construction of the final leg. At that point, you would have the trail that pretty much meets all users, running 4 miles, connecting up almost half of the distance necessary to get to the Kingston Ferry Terminal. That currently has a price tag of $2.7 million. Again, we do expect STP funds to be helping us with this as well. And again, participation of the continued participation of the Public Facilities District will be key to helping leverage those funds and gain additional federal dollars. And then ultimately, when it comes down to what is the construction of these facilities that the master plan says are economically viable, recreation opportunities, as well as sensitive to the environmental features, again, that is still ranging in the $9 million on the short end. If this is going to be something big, some projects have gone up to $100 million. This property is also adjacent to Port Gamble. Port Gamble is a nice, quiet little town right now, but I don't know if anybody's participated in Rainier's and OPG's master planning process. They are going to be redeveloping that site over the next 5 to 10 years. That is going to be a growing area that is also going to be bringing funding into our community that is directly going to be related to the improvements that we do in this park. So basically what I want to indicate to you is that we're making substantial progress. We've brought consultants on both for the master plan and for the development of the ride park. We are on schedule for the ride park at this time, as well as the Stottlemyre trailhead. We are running into a few issues with the Sound to Olympics trail design, especially as it applies to that construction money. The closer we can get design to construction, the better our design and permitting costs are going to be in regards to accuracy. So if we could lump those right up against one another, it would be beneficial. And ultimately, that may involve me coming to you at a later date, asking for some additional time beyond our existing end of 2021 time horizon. But also, there are a lot of opportunities that are going to come from this master plan that I currently can't tell you what are going to be. And it's the master plan that's going to educate that. But there's a lot of opportunities to partner with the Public Facilities District, leveraging your resources against federal, state resources, private funding towards an incredible project for the north end of the county. I will pause there, or stop if you'd like me to.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Eric, Tom Bullock here. I'm curious if you're monitoring usage now, and I know we're in sort of crazy time and there may have been an impact from COVID, but are you monitoring the volume of users that are enjoying the park now? And will you continue to do that to kind of benchmark, where you see usage rates to be in, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yes, we are currently monitoring them. We see tens of thousands of users annually. That's for the entirety of the 3,500 acres. When I threw out the 100,000 for Duthie Hills, that was just for a small isolated area focused solely on mountain biking. So we are going to be monitoring that, and we have seen an upswing with COVID in all of our parks. During the shutdown, you couldn't find a place to park. You couldn't find a place to park on the side of the road to get to any of our heritage parks countywide. Basically, the 3,500 acres, you figure there'd be a lot of space for people to spread out. At times, you couldn't go any distance without seeing other people, and we're talking about 65 miles in many ways of trails. The public, especially in the time of COVID, wants to be outside. They want to get outside. They want to be in safe spaces, and they don't necessarily want to do that in their backyard all the time. They want to come to someone else's backyard, and we would love to be that backyard.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Eric, in our literature and in our conversations, 15.5 million is a number that is talked about or is written down for what the estimated ask was for the county for this project. Is that a fair number, or would you revise that either lower or more given what you shared tonight?
I would say 15.5 million is a very reasonable number when you're talking about continued construction of the full trail system, as well as any one of these potential master plan projects, campgrounds, etc. Again, that would be matched. We're shooting for 1-to-1 with other funds. So a $15 million commitment from the Public Facilities District. We are currently working towards bringing in an additional 15 million in development opportunities. But the master plan is going to be educating exactly what that will be. We don't want to put something in place that doesn't bring in the economic benefit. So I don't want to commit to one thing right now, but I will say that 15.5 million is a reasonable number, probably a little closer to the, probably pretty close to the outer rim, the highest rim. Not necessarily in the middle, but probably in the higher echelons of what we'd be asking for over time.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Eric. And we'll move now into 4B. Well, actually, it looks like we're moving into, are we moving into the Paulsbo Perk project, Mike?
No, I started bringing in the wrong people early, so I apologize to Paulsbo. I'll correct that, but I will bring in the Port Orchard people at this point.
So we will move
the mayor is here.
We'll move to 4B, which is the Port Orchard SKCEC, and Mayor Patansu and Nick Bond will be giving us an update.
Actually, it'll be Steve Rice.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
There.
Right. So I'm going to give just a little brief, and then I'm going to hand this over to Steve Rice, who's probably got some pretty pictures and a better story than I do. So I'm excited to be here tonight. I shared last week with our city council. This is probably the weekly meeting that I have with Steve Rice and his team and my team at City Hall. Is the best Zoom meetings that I'm having. You know, we're doing some really exciting stuff. We're in the midst of our site selection process. We had ran a survey for a couple of weeks within our community. We had over 500 participants, and I'm really excited about that. We don't have all of the results. I've seen some of them, and it's really going to drive the process to what those other uses are in the building. And we're well on track to have our site selected and the uses identified by the end of the year. So we're moving pretty fast. And John Morrissey has joined our steering committee and has been making himself available to us and has been a great addition to our team. So thank you, John. So with that, Steve, if you could, I think you're going to probably want to share your screen if you can. If Michael lets you.
Okay, yeah, I'll need to fix that. Just a moment. Okay, should be able to share now, Steve.
As I say, in the void, I'll thank the mayor for his kind words and just let you all, I now know way more about sewers and pump houses and shorelines than I ever knew before. So it's been a learning process as well as fun.
Hi, everybody. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, sure can, Steve.
Yes,
great. Great. Thanks, everybody. Hi, Mike and Commissioner Mayor Patansu. Good to see all of you, and thank you for having us give an update today. I'll try, I know you have a long meeting, and so I'll try not to be long-winded, and I'll skip over the highlights for you today, but we're here to give you an update on progress for the South Kitsap Community Event Center. As Mayor said, it's going really well. I can tell you that at a high level, the news is all very good. Our task one work under the ILA between you and the city of Port Orchard is going well. There's tons of community participation. We are on schedule. We have a large consultant team. We are 10 disciplines altogether, spread to 7 firms. We're having great meetings, and there's really a nice spirit of communication and participation between everybody. On my screen tonight, I think I want to talk a couple minutes just about communication. Then I want to go through our task 1, our general task areas, and just give you an idea what our progress is. So Lori Cook, our Rice Fergus Miller project manager, has been engineering all of the coordination between all of the project's constituents and stakeholders. We routinely meet with 4 different groups. We meet with a steering committee, which includes the mayor and Nick Bond, the planning director, Jill Jean from the library system, and your own John Morrissey. John, thank you for always being there for us. Really appreciate it. And from time to time, we'll have an invited guest. At our next meeting, we'll have the superintendent of South Kitsap School District join us, Tim Winter. We also meet and update the city council. We just did that last week. We meet once a month with them. We also perform an update to the city's Economic Development and Tourism Committee, and that's always interesting. And we meet with a group of shareholders that includes Kitsap Bank and the private development players. If you remember, this project is part of a larger master plan on the west end of Port Orchard. So all of those conversations are going, and it's nice to come here and also talk with you. So I have a few slides to share with you. I'll try and make this a little bit larger. Our schedule is up here across the top. We're in our what we call our task 1 from your ILA. We split that into 2 pieces. The first of those pieces is largely about public outreach and programming and our site assessment, and then doing some concept planning on those sites. And you can see the timeline spread across the top here. The red line was our update to City Council last week. So we're now just to the right of that. We're in this last week of October. And all of the tasks outlined here, up and down and across the sheet, are in one color or another. Whether it's the city and design team tasks to do, only the design team tasks to do, and where our deliverables come into play. So, for instance, for public outreach and programming, you can see that every item is on the list, which ones are checked off. So we're staying on schedule, and we're due to wrap up this piece of work by making a final presentation to the City Council on December 15th, and they will be making an action to move forward, which then you will see in January. We're working now. We finished our site assessments for site restrictions and opportunities, and we're just now starting to work on concept plans at 3 different sites downtown. The mayor said that we've had really great participation in our community outreach piece, and that is another required element in the ILA. The survey was open between September 28th and October 16th, was actually extended a couple of days. Our sub-consultant, Serotonin, is doing a really amazing job on this. As you know, we've had really great participation, and I wanted to show you an example of what kind of results are coming back. This is just one of the results. Which of all the responses got the highest yes vote, and it has to do with our community thinks it's very important that this facility extends its usability by having covered outdoor areas in connection with the building itself. And we've been planning that all along. And you can see sort of how the responses are working. Also, space for community festivals was a big deal. When we closed, we realized that there were over 625 entries, so 625 participants. And one thing that I wanted to mention to you is, as part of the strategy for this outreach, we elected to, under the label of equity, take some action in reaching out to groups that maybe had not participated before, maybe assume that their voice won't make a difference. We approached over 100 different organizations for their input and asked specifically that they weigh in on the outreach process. And, you know, we went to the non-city service providers like sewer and water districts, fire and transit. We went to Rotary clubs, the Port Orchard Bay Street Association, Kitsap Economic Development Alliance, KEDA. We haven't made specific presentations, but we outreach to them and ask them to get involved. Puget Sound Regional Council, so reaching a little bit farther, military groups, educational groups, including school district and the college, Olympic College, Leadership Kitsap, South Kitsap Student Body Leadership, Fathoms of Fun folks, Manchester Community Association, social and welfare and religious groups like KCR, Coffee Oasis, Stand Up for Kids, South Kitsap Helpline, Washington Veterans Home, Retzel, et cetera, lots of business groups. And of course, all of the library's contacts. Library maintains contacts with the Friends of the Library volunteers, their board of trustees, their foundation board, and they have a very close relationship with the Puget Sound Genealogical Society. So we've made every effort to leverage this outreach to as many corners of our community as we can, and we get better answers that way. I'll walk you through a little bit of how the programming is coming along. Obviously, it's not 100%, it's probably 90%. We didn't want to close the programming until we had received every piece of public input. And I'll just give you a taste for what it looks like. We've presented all of this to the steering committee. You see there's a little bit of a color piece here. For those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with the CEC, it is providing an event space, a new library, what we call collective space, which holds everything together, and some other things for consideration in downtown Port Orchard as part of a West End master plan on a piece of property on Bay Street, one side or the other. And what our program documents look like, if we stay in blue for a minute and we talk about event space, which of course is synonymous with meeting space. I just picked one page out of the document. We are cataloging large event spaces, medium event spaces or meeting rooms, small event spaces and meeting rooms. Obviously, this is just the page dedicated to the latter of those two. And I want you to know that we're drilling down on the kinds of uses that these spaces would be available for, the capacity in each case, depending on how they are set up in a conference setting with rounds for maybe a dinner, a classroom setting with mostly chairs, or a wide open, non-fixed seats kind of thing. So in each case, we go through this and build our program. Here's a similar one. Purple is the library side of things. One of the exciting things that the library is planning and programming into this facility is what they call a Light Lab, which stands for Learn, Innovate, Technology, and Explore. And it's a little bit inspired by new movements into what we call co-working. If you've ever been to a co-working space, as you know or may know, Kitsap Regional Library has partnered to provide a small business resource center in their branches. And so one of those will be coming to Port Orchard. It's a tutoring center, and with COVID, of course, that's been very popular, and lots of technology access. So it's a really cool thing that would be something that we would be bringing to Port Orchard. This all wraps up into an overall program, and when we came to you a year and a half or 2 years ago to pitch this project, we were estimating we would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24,000 square feet in all, and we are hovering between 22 and a little over 25, and we have a ways to go to refine the program, of course. But in the big picture, rather than take you through all of these, the pure event space and meeting space is coming in at about 5,000, which is what we thought. The library at about 11, which is commensurate with the new one being constructed in Silverdale right now. It's about 12. And then these collective spaces that includes all of the circulation between the rooms, the stairways, a shared lobby, which will be a feature in the building. And you can see that between the event space and the collective space, we have about 12.5 available for events, very much like we were looking at before, plus the library space. So this building will be designed in such a way that some of the library space can also be added to the collective space and the event space to stage really interesting events, maybe on more than one level, with spaces open to one another. And it can be, I think, the most interesting and fun event space in the county. But I'm biased, of course. In our site options, I think you've seen maybe an earlier version of this before. The West End master plan is roughly where my cursor is. We've also looked outside the master plan to test things because we don't want to miss an opportunity. But we are just now starting design to test the concept of this 24,000 foot program on what we call a combination of sites 2 and 6, both of which are owned by Kitsap Bank, and Kitsap Bank today sits right here. Site 3 and 4, the old Myery site, which I'm sure many of you know, on the corner of Bay Street and Sydney. And where the current library sits, which we call Site 4, that's a city-owned property. And then also Site 5, which is the non-water or the upland side of Bay Street, which is right here. So for each of those, the team has completed its phase 1 site assessment reports. And what those are a list that looks something like this, where for each site, we have done our zoning homework, our shorelines homework, topographic work, investigated utilities, some very preliminary structural on the sites, preliminary geotechnical, transportation, had an archaeological study done, and of course the biological side, which is the water side of this, given that some of the sites have the potential for shorelines mitigation. That's a very exciting part of the project. Shorelines portion would not be funded by the KPFD, but if we could leverage this project to do some of that for Port Orchard, that would be terrific. Here is a permitting plan. So doing our homework on, depending on which site is chosen, what sort of permits and approvals would be required and of whom, and the duration of time. So covering our bases there. Show you this again. If we were to zoom in on the site 2+6 combination or option A, our constraint mapping is done. So we understand what size of a facility we could get on either one, considering all of the setbacks, the zoning code, utilities, easements, that kind of thing. And then lastly, I just want to wind it up for you to let you know that we are starting concept design, last piece of our task 1. And our plan, as we agreed with you in the ILA, is to do a concept building design on all of the 3 site options, A, B, and C. That is looking like sites 2, site 3, and site 5. And we have a scoring matrix that we're developing. We're going to share with City Council tomorrow. And the outcomes, which is what is really important here, the outcome for the best CEC on any of these sites will be evaluated and decided. And we'll package all of that with our due diligence and present it to the City Council on December 15th. And with your blessing in January, we would go into your task 2, which is to create a full schematic and cost estimate on the chosen and selected site. And we will have a recommendation for the site selection in our December package to the city. So that was pretty quick. It's been a really, really fun project to conduct, and the parties are working together really well. I can't wait for December. Not making any judgments yet, but there are going to be some very promising concepts come out of this work. And I would open it up now for either further comment from the mayor. Thank you, Rob, for being here, or for questions from any of you.
Questions for Steve or I?
Everybody's happy?
You just did a good job.
Done a good job, Steve. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's
Hey,
a pleasure.
I would ask you just that ending question of 12 million is the number that is often connected to the Port Orchard project. Is that still a fair number, or would you estimate it would be lower or higher?
Thanks for the question. I can answer it 2 or 3 different ways. 12 million is the ask portion of roughly a $20 million project. And COVID has done some interesting things to the supply of building materials across North America, if not the world.
Yeah.
Materials are, at the moment, harder to come by. Lead times are longer. There's a scarcity of some things. We are doing a project in Silverdale now, about 8 million in size, and the contractor informed us that the cost of lumber has increased 100% since March 15th. It's a very strange kind of world out there, and so I think there's an asterisk with all of this. You know, we will be delivering a full cost estimate when we get to the spring. And I'm very curious to see what it is. Everyone is working, everyone is busy, which is really great. I think if we can get the materials scarcity figured out, and certainly by the time this building is under construction, that will have been figured out. Darren, our other approach here is something that I brought up to the city in our interview process with them. You saw us running 2 sets of numbers in our program where we have both a smaller square footage and a larger total square footage with about 3,000 or 4,000 feet in between. And we intend to keep that going through the rest of this task. I would like to deliver a project that is flexible and interesting and isn't overbuilt in any way, except that you can use it in really interesting ways to stage an event that's really larger than you should be able to do in the building. And, you know, we're all very interested in making sure that we have a slightly smaller facility that is busy all the time than a slightly larger facility that, you know, has less use and more of that, you know, beautiful waterfront square footage, you know, sitting without occupants. And so we want to make this project just as tantalizing as possible. And if that means something slightly smaller with a little more site work and the ability to use some covered outdoor space, I think that's a good answer. And right now we're holding to our $20 million preliminary budget.
Thank you.
I would just say that, we're looking, this is a great opportunity to activate and, revitalize our downtown. And as we told the Public Facilities District when you made us your top project, this is and I've said this multiple times to this process to various groups, it's three-legged stool here. The community center is one piece of it. The bank headquarters is the second piece, and the third is the housing element and the mixed use project. And they all three have to come. They aren't going to be built on the same day, but we're committed to all three phases of that, because it doesn't work. The community center it doesn't work without the other partners, and that was the commitment we made to you. And we're committed to making all three phases happen, and for this to be successful.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions?
I think we need to work with Eric to buy some of that timber so that we can keep it local. And
there we go. That sort of fits in with the story that we are starting to think about for the story that's told inside this building about the Kitsap community. I'll save the rest of it for later, but it will also involve the North End.
And we're looking forward. You won't see us again until January. We owe it to our city council to give them the first glimpse of this potential new facility in December. And it's after your December meeting. So we'll be back at your January meeting. So pencil us in, and we're going to share some exciting stuff.
I'll talk with Darren, and we'll probably do a staggered status update with the projects. So will we do like one a month through the quarter, and then we'll repeat each quarter or something like that.
All right, let's move on to 4C. Thank
you
again, Steve. Thank you, Mayor Patonsu. And move on to the Paulsbo Perk. And Mike, would you bring in Carla and
I'll go back
her team.
And get them again. Carla, Mary, Peter, and Mary or Carla, who's going to do most of the talking? Who do I need? You're going to do a PowerPoint. So
yeah,
Carla,
I have the PowerPoint. So if you can enable me to share my screen, Mike, I would really appreciate it.
I will do that now. Thank you. Okay. And Mary, you have a question? Your hand is raised.
Am I in there twice in your waiting room?
Yes.
Can you let the other Mary in? Because it's Becky, the mayor. There's only one of me, but I have two. I have two screens.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get Mary Becky in. Whew, couldn't get that out.
All right. So good evening, Kitsap Public Facility District Board, and Mike and Brian. It's such a pleasure for us to be here this evening. I'm Carla Boughton. I'm the Planning and Economic Development Director here at the City of Paulsbo. And with me is Mary McCluskey, our Parks and Recreation Director, and Peter Bacciuello, who is the PERC Project Manager. We are pleased to provide you a short PowerPoint tonight, letting you know about the work that we've accomplished this year since our ILA has been in place. And Mary is going to start us off with the beginning of our PowerPoint here.
All right, so tonight we would like to give you a summary of the project, progress of the work that we have accomplished under the interlocal agreement. We want to talk about our public launch, which happened last Friday, and the work that we have ahead of us, and then our phased approach to project delivery and funding. First of all, we want to talk a little bit about remind you what's important about the PERC. There's a lot of important pieces, but number one, it's a public project at this point. It's the City of Paulsbo and it's the Kitsap Public Facilities District. We know we're going to have a lot of other partners in with the project, but right now, this is definitely the first step as a public project. This project will fulfill the public facility legislation. It will be a regional center with convention, conference, and special event type areas. There will be a center available to the public for community and sporting events, trade shows, artistic presentations, and performances. And this is the only Kitsap Public Facility District funding project that has fields, sports fields, and multi-use recreation. We want to be able to host upcoming tournaments again. Another important thing about the PERC is that we are connected literally by our property lines with 2- and 4-year education institutions. Olympic College Paulsbo and Western on the Peninsulas are both located in the same building, of course, but on our north side. And then the other benefit is to local business. College Marketplace is busy, it's booming, there's more going on up there. There's a hotel that's fully under construction that is supposed to be done by fall of 2021. And we just feel like the partnership between business and the PERC and the city and the colleges is just a perfect place to be. So just a summary of the project, the PERC is a collaboration between the City of Paulsbo, the Kitsap Public Facilities District, and the Kitsap community at large. This is what we envision, but until we see our results from the survey, things are probably going to change just slightly, but what we envision is a 20,000 square foot event center, probably on the top floor because that's the floor that can see Mount Rainier. 20,000 square feet of classroom space with audiovisual, commercial catering kitchen, fitness facilities, meeting rooms, and administrative space for the Parks and Recreation Department. We envision 4 acres of all-season lighted turf fields for multi-use sporting, recreational, entertainment events. There are parcels that we'll talk about in a little bit, but there are parcels that are available for sale contiguous to our property. And the most important part is that this project will be located on 6 acres of city-owned property that we already own. So here's the map. That's Highway 3 right in the middle. And so first of all, it's easy access to a major highway. You head north, you're going to go to the Hood Canal Bridge, Jefferson County, Clallam County. If you head south, you're going to go to Silverdale, Bremerton, Tacoma. If you head kind of the other south, the southeast, you're going to go to Bainbridge and Kingston and to the ferries. But this is an ideal location, College Marketplace. There you see the colleges to our north of the PERC. You see the Fairfield Inn that is under construction slightly to the east. And you see lots of retail, shopping, and restaurants in the rest of the space. So just a reminder of how we got to this, because I do know you have some new board members. The Public Facility District made a call for proposals in 2018. We submitted in December of 18, presented the proposal in March of 2019. The PERC ranked number 2 of 7 projects in July. We negotiated the ILA between August and November of 19. And both the City Council and the Kitsap Public Facility District Board approved the ILA in December of 2019. First of all, our phase 1 feasibility from the Kitsap Public Facility District was $243,900. City match is in the form of staff time. We have 2 departments working hard on this project, the Planning and Economic Development Department and the Parks and Recreation Department, and different staff members within both departments. The agreement is for the city and the PFD to work together during this first phase to evaluate feasibility, and this should include and will include community outreach, market and financial analysis, a concept plan or determination of uses, site planning, and a facility management plan.
So we're happy. Thank you, Mary. We're happy to give you a progress report on the work that we've accomplished since our ILA. Our KPFD coordination and project management, we did select, we issued an RFP and selected a project manager. Mike Walton was a member of our selection committee and worked through that process with a larger selection committee. We've been meeting with Mike, or we've been providing Mike bi-monthly progress reports, as well as in-person, of course, virtual coordination meetings with your executive director. We've made 2 reimbursement requests to him, and we are maintaining a spending plan and financial tracking of the funds that we provide to your executive director as well. The first phase of our, or the first task in our phase 1 feasibility is community outreach. And we are so excited that, well, actually, sorry, that's the next slide. So we have the website and community preference survey launch, which was Friday. We've established a steering committee, and we've also hired a consultant to work with us on a select basis. So it's as needed consultant for our community engagement. But this is the slide I was super excited to show with all of you guys, because we did have our website launch on Friday. This is a snapshot of our front page here, and we are engaging with a survey. And this is a community or community preference survey, where the questions of the survey are asking them what uses, very specific uses, would they like to see and support in the perk. So we have a web page set up, we have our email set up, we have mailed postcards to 5,200 addresses. That is all city residents, and that postcard is going to ask them to take the survey. We emailed out today nearly 15,000 email addresses asking for them to come to our webpage and take our survey. And we had a social media blast starting on Friday, and within 24 hours, we had 20,000 hits on our social media. So we're so excited and encouraged about the community engagement. Yay, thank you, Mike. We're very excited about it. We really think that the community was ready for this, and we can't wait to see what our survey results are going to be. So what we have been working concurrently as well as the other tasks of our ILA, we have market and financial analysis reports that we owe the Public Facility District. We went through an RFP process. We selected Burke Consulting to provide our market and financial analysis, analyzing the perk and providing their ability, demonstrating their ability to support it in the market and the financial piece of it. They will also provide input to the facility management plan, which will primarily be created by city staff, but with consultant assistance. Excuse me. And then our next step that we're working on right now is our concept plan, which is the determination of uses. We have 2 things going on concurrently. We have a preliminary discussions with College Marketplace to explore options to acquire adjacent parcels if necessary as we work through our concept plan. And then we'll be issuing the RFP for consultants, and there'll be firms, architectural firms that will help with our determination of space and uses, as well as the site planning will be a component of that as well. So looking ahead for the next couple of months, we will continue with our community outreach. We're going to have the results of our first preference survey. Our survey will go through, I think, November 16th. And we also will have a follow-up survey, most likely in January. We're going to convene the steering committee, and we will facilitate those steering committee work groups as well. We will engage with Burke and their work on the market analysis, and we will begin drafting a management plan, and we will hire the concept planning consultant and retain an architect for the space planning and concept site plans. Now this piece here is really exciting as we started to put this together. This shows you our timeline. And as you'll recall in our initial presentation and our proposal, we did propose a phase approach to the perk. We laid out that it was a 3-phased approach and that we would take each phase separately and come to the PFD upon completion of one before we move to phase 2 or phase 3. So where we're at here is the phase 1. is our feasibility study, and that we do anticipate that that will be concluding at some point in 2021. Then moving to phase 2, our request to the KPFD, after the City Council resolves to pursue phase 2 funding, which will probably be about a year from now, we will come back to the PFD requesting funding for our phase 2, which is design and development, between 1.75 and 2 million for that phase. Then we will engage in our phase 2 design and development, which will be the final A&E plans. We'll have our recreational facility planning, our site engineering, capital facility strategies. This is where we'll start laying out, finalizing what financial partners we'll have, our partner agreements, and then the construction plans and specs. And then moving to phase 3, we will resolve, the City Council will resolve to move forward with phase 3. This is where our community vote will occur. And you have known from the beginning, as well as we have, that a community vote for our portion of the funding will be necessary. So we'll have a community vote somewhere, either fall of 2023 or 2024. And then we will make the request to the KPFD for the remaining share of the construction. And then phase 3 is the construction phase of the event center, the outdoor recreation, the indoor recreation, and all the perk amenities, which we're anticipating between 2025 and 2026. So with that concludes our PowerPoint presentation, and we are all here, as well as Mayor Erickson, to answer any questions that the board has. And just again, thank you for our opportunity to present progress we've made and where we're going from here. We're all very excited.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment real quickly.
Yes.
We put the social media blast out and we were completely overwhelmed with the response. All 2.2 thousand engagements means people actually click through and engage in response. Overwhelmingly positive response. I want to remind this group that this is being built for the people. This is for our citizens. This is for our kids. We need these recreational facilities in the North End, the fields, an aquatic center, all of these pieces, plus the ability to partner with the hotel, which is now 3 stories high. It's wood framed and ready to go and is on schedule for events and the economic impact that this will have. Plus the relationship between Western Washington University and Olympic College, which is right next door. They would be able to use this facility for conferences, symposiums, all of that. It's all of them all mixed together. And the response has been absolutely amazing by our public. We are asking them to vote to tax themselves, and the response is still positive, very positive. So, I'm amazed, I'm thrilled, and I'm really proud of the citizens of the greater Paulsbo area that they're so responsive to this concept. They really want this. They want a new pool facility. They want the ability to have recreational classes. They need an area for conferences without, going on down to Bremerton or in area. We need in the North End. And so I'm so thrilled that everybody else is seeing that same vision.
Mayor Erickson and Carla, the number in the ILA, I believe, is 35 million for the total project. And the number that we talk about, or that I have written down in our documents, is somewhere that the ask is somewhere between 12 million to 18 million. Is that number still an accurate number, or would you again move that lower or higher?
Well, I think that's an accurate number for planning purpose for right now. Of course, our what we plan to do is find partners to join with us in the PERC and do a capital, capital funding program and outreach. So I think that once we have a final construction dollar, which will come out of phase 2, the final cost estimate, then we'll be able to have, that will also be where we're engaging with our capital funding. And then we'll have a number that we will then split with the PFD, and half of it will go to the vote, something like that. I think that Peter, our project manager, might have a little bit of a more eloquent way of answering your question. So Peter, if you want to pop on and provide Darren a little bit more detail than probably what I'm providing.
Sure. Thanks, Carla. Good to see everybody. I think where we're at in our process, we're still trying to scale the facility to the community need. It's very important for us to really understand the components that will aggregate into this facility. We have a structure, we have events, we have recreation, we have fields. Well, there's a lot of detail that goes into that, and there's a lot that the community has to say about what they want that to be. And then, of course, we have to understand what the market will bear. So those two pieces that we're working on now will really help us scale the facility. And obviously the scale of the facility will drive the cost. So I think Carla's right. For where we are now, that's a really good planning number. It's probably toward the upper end of what scale we can achieve on this site and for these activities. So we'll see how well the community supports the need for it, and see how well they're willing to pick up their share of it. So that's what we hope the feasibility study will tell us.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much for being with us, Carla, Mayor Erickson, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, let's move on to item number 5 on our agenda, financial reports, and 5A, the monthly reports. Mike, I'll hand this off to you.
Okay, let me get to the right place here. That's not the right place. Here we go. Okay, oops, I need to share that. Okay, now we're sharing. We're looking at the sales tax rebate revenue summary, showing the results from September, $167,000 plus. Again, this is the third month in a surprising string of receipts that were above the level of 2019. 157,000 plus last year, and we're at 167,000 plus this year. So just to finish up, we've done $70,000 of debt service payments, which we pay each month, the net of just under $100,000. And the expenses of around $18,000, leaving us just under $80,000 that went to cash proceeds in our account. But the key is that was up 6.5%, 6.6% over last year. And that's been fairly steady the last 3 months. We had 3 down months and then 3 up months. If we continue on the same avenue, we'll wind up approximately the same as we did last year, around $1.8 million. So it'll probably be somewhere between the 1.7, $1.8 million for the year. Any questions about that? Any comments? In the other financial sheets, we have, this is our performance against the budget in the 968 account. That's our operations account. And the result is that we're basically on track with our budget. We're under budget at this point, which we typically are because we don't utilize 100% of what our budgeted items are. And we're still with a cash balance that should pretty much get us through the end of the year. The next portion of the financial statements, this is the revenue and expenses by fund. The 286 fund in the first column is our debt service fund, in which the money comes in, it accumulates each month and then gets paid out twice a year, basically in June and December, to pay the approximately $850,000 a year that we pay in debt service. The most interesting thing, the 968 fund, as I mentioned, is the operations fund. The 977 fund is our holding fund or general fund, and that's where the money accumulates. This column on the second page shows the first payments that we made here on this yellow box notation, the Paulsbo PERC invoices for the about $15,000 that was paid last month for the first invoices that we have received from Paulsbo. And there is another one that's in our voucher payments that we'll see later on. Any other questions about the financials or the way that we're beginning to report the invoices to track and account for the costs?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions, Mike. So this statement is not just for the month. This is for year to date on this. So where is the payment in June for the, you said about $850,000 on the bond? Where does that reflect?
It's the 629,000 that shows in the 286 fund. That's because the full amount hasn't gone out. The balance of that goes out in December.
So that's showing up in the assets and the income side.
Yeah, on the income side, that's the accumulation um, of the 10 months to date, or 9 months.
So those funds, if you
Yeah,
scroll down, yeah. If you scroll down right there where you're at,
Yeah.
I see the balancing 629 for under chart of accounts 5520. So that's the holding cash account. Am I getting this right? If you go up a few lines, you can see the matching 629 number.
Right.
But it's in account 977. No,
it comes into 977 first and then gets transferred to the 286 account where it's held and accumulates.
So, all right.
Where it says on the 5520 line, payments, federal, state, local, that 645 number is what's been paid out. Well, that should come out of 286 though, not out of.
I think this goes back to my question last time about trying to understand these better. So
I think to kind of second what Aaron's going down is, I think for most of us, we're used to looking at a private side income statement balance sheet. I don't know. I'm still trying to learn, being new here, how accounting might work in more of a public setting. And even I'm familiar with another organization I work with. We do fund accounting, which looks similar to this, but not the first set of documents you said. So I'd be interested to know what an income statement looks like for the PFD as well.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a balance sheet.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because and then you said the payments are about 850, but this one's reflecting 629. Does that mean the one in December is
850 is for the full year, and the December payment hasn't occurred yet.
So the December payment's only going to be a little over 200,000?
Well, no, it should be more than that, because the mid-year payment on June is just the interest, and the one in December is interest and principal.
Yeah, you pay interest twice a year, principal only once a year.
Okay, so what's the dollar amount that's going to hit in December?
I think what he was trying to say, Aaron, is don't forget you still have to do that. Was it 80-some thousand a month for October, November, December?
Yes.
Is that what our debt service is, I think?
Yeah, plus the previous 3 months as well.
Yeah, and it's 80,000 a month times 12 months, so it's should be about 900.
No, it's a little less, Walt. It's about 80,000 a month for 12 months. No, excuse me, 70,000 a month for 12.
Right.
Months.
Okay.
So it's
840,000.
850.
Okay, which makes sense on the 850 number. Okay, got it. I was just trying to look and trying to figure out what, depending on how much money we've got in there, how much is already earmarked to go out in December of the 840.
Well, it'll be 6 something, because there's about 120 in interest that's already gone out in June.
Any other questions for Mike on the monthly financials? Otherwise, I'm going to move us forward on approving our blanket vouchers.
I have one, Mike. So what's the balance in our our fund that we have to pay these invoices and fund the projects?
That balance is not shown on this sheet.
No, we didn't get a cash balance sheet this time. I know we did last time.
There's actually 5 sheets that are generated by our accountant. I'll be happy to supply all 5 of them. I was trying to provide a summary that had pertinent information that you were asking for, and this one particularly because it showed the invoices for the first project. But I'll give you all 5 sheets next month, and that does have a balance sheet and other information that you'll value.
So are we right around 3 million?
So we're at about 3.3 million now. Again, this is just for January through September, so it doesn't show the previous balance. But the total is about 3.3 million at this point.
Thank you.
And if we have performance similar to what we've been seeing so far in the future, again, we'll have roughly about another $1 million in assets in next year, in addition to the 3.3 that there is now.
All right. Any other questions for Mike? Otherwise, I'm going to move us forward with approving our vouchers. Okay, moving on to 5B, our blanket voucher.
Yeah,
the KPFD September expenses. I think it speaks for itself. You might want to note the October expenses being a little more than what they are usually.
Actually, they're kind of balanced off a little bit because the legal services have gone down. We're not so much into ILAs and changes and so on, but the October expenses for me are up dramatically because of the purchase of a new computer, which is going to be the technology baseline for us into the next 4 or 5 years.
The rationale for the two other board members was just that we're Zoom, we're digitally orientated right now, and we wanted to make sure that Mike had the right equipment to do the job.
I'm working on a 5-year-old all-in-one with 8K of memory. The new one has 32 gigabytes of memory and one of the fastest Intel processors. So we're going to be gobbling up digits by the billions.
So with that, can I have a motion for approval of this voucher?
I move approval of the public voucher.
Thank
in
you,
the amount
Walt.
of $5,291.86.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tom. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the voucher for September, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right. Voucher, motion passes, voucher paid. The 5C, our project voucher approval. This is for the PERC. We just heard an update on the PERC. And this is for another voucher for that project. But can I hear a motion for approval of this voucher?
I'll move for that.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Aaron. All right. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving this voucher say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion approved. Now, 5D, update from financial advisor Alan Dashin. Mike, I don't see him in our participants. Is Alan going to be with us tonight?
I had thought he was, but you're right. I don't see him in the participants either. Let me stop sharing this for a moment.
Mike, why don't we do this? I'm going to move us on to 6A for approving the bylaws after we've had those to look at over the last month. And if you want to contact Alan or look into what's going on there, please do. But let's move on to 6A. And we discussed these revised bylaws at our last meeting and thought it was good form to just leave it for a month to chew on it, look through it again, see if any more questions were raised before approving them. Are there any other questions that you have as a board that you'd like to ask Brian, or that you'd like to discuss before we see the motion for approving these revised bylaws? All right. I'm not seeing any hand waving or anybody voicing in, so I'll take that as we feel good with these. So can I have a motion to approve the revised bylaws?
So motioned.
John, was that you?
Yep.
Thank you, John. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Walt. And any discussion on this now at this point? All right, then let's vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. All right, we have approved these revised bylaws. Brian, thank you for your good work as always. Mike, for the ED activity report, what would you like to share?
Okay, hang on 1 second here.
Are we skipping over B on number 6?
I have number 6B as the ED activity report. What do you have it as?
Discussion held over from the last meeting about the Port of Bremerton project.
That is now number 9A.
Oh, I guess I didn't get the revised agenda. Okay.
Does everybody else have the revised agenda, or are you in the same spot as Aaron?
I have the revised as well.
I have the revised agenda.
I have the revised agenda.
Okay.
I believe it was an email that came out just today or yesterday, though, Aaron. But that is on our agenda for tonight, Aaron.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. 6B, Mike, ED activity report. Anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I didn't have that in my packet, so I don't have it up there to show you. I apologize for that, but I have it in my folder, so let me get that out and we'll talk about it. I have it somewhere in my folder. I apologize. I don't seem to have that in front of me right now. It was here earlier, but I don't see it right now, but I can find it.
Well, let's move on to 6C for the regional facility reports, and I'll just ask that each of you would read those. Mike, were you able to contact, or did you hear anything from Alan?
No, I haven't heard anything from Alan. We talked about this a week or so ago. I sent him an email with the meeting contact information, but he does not appear to be in evidence. So let's move on to the budget discussion.
All right, we'll move on then to 7A, which is budget review and discussion. This is a first look at our budget for next year. We'll take comment, we'll adjust, we'll make changes as the board gives directive or as you question, and then we'll bring it to a vote at our next meeting. Mike, can you put that up on our screen?
And here it is. This is shown in comparison to the current 2020 year-to-date expenses and costs. That's through the end of September. So that's 9 months out of the year. And we're through 144,000 and change so far this year. The new budget is at $250,000. The indications are the green areas are those that have increased or are projected to increase. And the red numbers are some of the decreases. So I'm forecasting that we'll have somewhat less legal expenses this year, but some increase in telephone, internet, minor office rent going up as the rent here on this building has gone up, and there is going to be some exchange of space in the office to where we'll have a little more space than we have now. So we'll be paying approximately half of the rent where we were paying about 2/5 of the rent before. Otherwise, most of the rest of it is about the same. I had originally forecast less money for event fund and event support because at least 2 of the events from last year have carried over to this year, or at least are projecting to have their events this year. And so there won't be additional event fund money other than what was committed last year, but it will get expensed out of this budget. But Darren had suggested we keep the full amount in case we have a recovery and we have people that are looking to do events at the facilities, and we'll have the money allocated to be able to support that.
John and Phil, we haven't been through an event fund with you on the board yet, correct? So what we use this money for is to encourage events to happen at the public facilities that we have helped to develop. And so the idea there is that we would help, especially with marketing, that would bring in people from outside of Kitsap to these events, who would then stay in hotels, eat out, spend money in Kitsap. And so the event fund maybe wouldn't be used this next year. We'll see what happens. But it's even with 25,000, I wouldn't mind if it were 50,000 to encourage more events to happen. And we only do it for 2 or 3 years. We don't do it every year for the same ones, but to help events get started that then draw more people to our facilities. So that's the idea behind it. And I think it's a really good way of us spending our money where we get a lot of return for our investment that way.
Sounds pretty familiar to, say, the city of Bremerton's LTAC fund.
I'm not familiar with that. Maybe Mike, you are?
What's that?
a city's lodging tax allocation, LTAC. I assume it's similar. Is the process similar? There's multiple criterion that have to be made.
Yeah, we publish the information on the website and distribute it, and it's not quite like the lodging tax, but it's similar in a sense that we have criteria that they need to meet in order to qualify. And as Darren said, we provide the marketing support to get more reach so that they get more attendees. But we've done a variety of different things, all the way from wrestling tournaments to events at the fairgrounds for antiques that drew thousands and so on. So it's been a variety of things. Some are more successful than others, and some don't work out as well.
Are there any questions for the budget, or any comment or guidance you'd like to give?
What's the process from here, Darren?
So we'll do this discussion tonight. We would make any revisions off of that discussion. We'd let it sit for a month until our December meeting, and then we would vote for our budget in December.
Correct.
So if we had input on the budget now or next month would be an appropriate spot for that.
If you've got input now, that's fine. I'll make note of that and make some adjustments as the board approves or suggests, and then we can discuss it further on the final version in December.
Yeah, I would say if, John, if you look through it process-wise and you see something, put an email out to everybody with that suggestion, so that, we have that idea going into the meeting, so that most likely we just approve it at the next meeting rather than have any substantive discussion.
Okay.
Is it possible, Mike, for you to put this budget, the column you've got it against now, I can't see the title of it right now, but I believe it's only a year to date for this year.
Yes.
So could we see the proposed annual 2021 budget against the approved 2020, the total year?
Oh, the total?
Well,
okay.
I'm 250 versus 180, but that's not, I don't want to do the math and extrapolate out. So
yeah.
If you
I can.
Okay, just email it out to us so we're comparing apples to apples. That'd be great.
Thank you, Aaron. Anybody else? All right. Let's move on to 7B then.
Okay.
The 2021 meeting schedule discussion.
Let me back up one item if I can, because I have the activity report. Not much happening right now with regional projects. The new projects that you've heard the status reports for those. Brian is working on a contract for the new construction consultant. I've had a couple of conversations with Shannon so far, and we need to virtually sit down and talk about the final details and the costs. He did have a cost estimate in his proposal, but we'll work out those details, and we may have the contract available in October for review and approval. Other organizations, I've been discussing with VKP about the action plan for 2021, and we'll have her agreement, or Brian will prepare the agreement, and we'll have her action plan for 2021 also at the December meeting. I obviously didn't do a good job of arranging for an update at the October meeting because our financial advisor wasn't here. So I'll check with him and find out what happened there. I've been working on digital signatures, particularly with the new directors on the board. I have their signatures and those have been submitted. And Brian is preparing new additions or have just passed the bylaws for the changes to solidify that digital signature process. So we're still working on doing board meetings. I think they're getting better. You can tell me. We're in the process of upgrading network security. I have a new firewall on the computer. The PC upgrade is going forward, although we did have a glitch with the consultant that we hired to work with us. It didn't work out. So I went through the purchase process myself for what we'll use into the future. I have been working with Susan to work on accounting setup for new projects, and you saw that reflected in our financial reports tonight. This is a point of interest. I have gotten a couple of conflict of interest forms. We do have to fill these out every year, and that typically is in the June, July timeframe, so we're a little behind the curve. If you would look for those, if you don't see them in the emails I've sent out, I'll be glad to send out a new conflict of interest form to those that haven't completed them yet.
Mike, this is Walt.
Yep.
If we don't know if we've completed them yet or not, can you email us if we're delinquent?
Yep, I will be happy to do that. It's on my to-do list. I made a note here about Visit Kitsap is asking for a rearrangement of office spaces to give us some more space. Of course, then we'll pay a little more rent for that. One thing you didn't see was the new spreadsheet and Gantt chart to try and depict the funding requirements, although I did send those out to all of the directors. You saw some changes in the timelines that were originally proposed. So you'll see that reflected in the next Gantt chart and spreadsheet that I send out. So we have business in regard to Circuit of the Northwest that we'll talk about in our executive session. Any other questions? Let's see here. Okay.
Sorry, I was talking while muted. I apologize. I was saying thank you, Mike, for that. And we still have our 7B 2021 meeting scheduled discussion to talk about.
And this is the proposed meeting schedule. It comes in the form of a resolution, Resolution 2 in 2020. And this is proposed at this point as it was this year. A meeting a year, basically on the fourth Monday of the month, except where there has been some conflicts with the BOCC meeting if we do it in county administration building. in May. You'll notice here, this is on the last day of the month. Our typical meeting would be May 24th. If we're having it as a Zoom meeting, we can have it on May 24th. If we have it in the county administration building quarters, we'll do it in the 31st. And again, the December meeting is the combined November and December meeting to avoid absences during the holidays in November and December. Any questions about the proposed schedule? And again, this is a discussion and consideration. We'll actually vote on this in December. Unless everybody's happy with this, you could approve it now, but it's typically designed to be suggested and then ratified at the December meeting.
On the December 6th meeting, it's the only one on there that's not mentioned that it's or Zoom. Do you think, just to be careful, we should add that?
Yeah, I can certainly add that. Yeah.
John and Phil and other members or attendees who are listening, it was our practice that we would meet at the hotel. Is the Best Western? Is that what it is right now? Or
yeah,
in Silverdale, and had a regular meeting in a regular room. But as we were going through the different proposals that we received for funding from the different areas, came to an understanding that people are much more likely to come and speak to us if we're in their town. And so we tend to get a lot more people from Port Orchard when we're actually meeting in Port Orchard. We get a lot more people from Bainbridge Island when we're meeting in Bainbridge Island. And so as a way of being able to both have the public know what we do and to promote that, but also to be able to get more input from the community, we made this kind of revolving meeting schedule to try and accomplish that.
So I'm attempting to have some semblance of normal. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? All right, we'll table this then until our next meeting. And then does that cover everything from 1 to 7, Mike?
Yeah, let me take one quick look here. It does.
Good?
That is correct.
Okay. So at this point in time, the board will be going into executive session, and we are doing that for the purpose of discussing potential or threatened litigation, and that's authorized by RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses I. We are expecting that this will take 30 minutes, and so we will be going, the way that this will transpire is we will go into a separate Zoom chat, and it is now 7:39, so we will plan to return at 8:10. If we're not able to return at 8:10, I will come back and notify everybody of a new time set. But at this point, we will be going into executive session, and we will return at 8:10.
Can I ask a technical question? So we leave this meeting and then log in with the meeting number and the password for the executive session. And then when that's over, we leave that one and log back in to this one. Is that what we do?
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
I'd like to call the meeting that had started on Monday, August 26th, back to order. It is now October 28th, Wednesday. It's 8 p.m. And we want to apologize to all of you who were attending that meeting for the disruption to your schedules. We had a technological mishap where our Zoom meeting stopped, and there was no way to restart it with all of you. And so this seemed the best course of action as we spoke about it, to contact each of you individually who were on there, as well as to put it on our website to say that we would be having this meeting to best do the Open Public Meetings Act. So with that, we rejoin our previous meeting at item number 9, which is ongoing discussion. If Mike, you want to put that up. And it's to discuss the Port of Bremerton Circuit of the Northwest project. This is a discussion that had been delayed for the purpose of making sure that all 7 of our members could be here for this discussion. And we have a full board now, and we can have this discussion together. So with that, I just open it to the board if anybody would like to start us.
Aaron, you're muted.
That's okay. I also changed screens while I was at it. Yeah, we wanted to bring this up to discuss looking at funding on additional or the final set of drawings, I believe. Now I don't have my items in front of me. We did realize that that there's some items that need to be completed based on the ILA that we had awarded funds on previously. I believe that information is getting out to, if not already gotten out to, the Port of Bremerton on this. So at this point, my understanding is we'll be waiting to get the completion on those and be able to proceed in discussing this further. Anybody got comments?
Any other comments?
I would just second what Aaron said. You know, I think, as I've said previously, I do support, you know, at least looking at the final design as potentially getting some funds down the road. But given what the requirements were previously from the prior ILA, I think those need to be met, and then they can maybe do another ask for it.
Darren, I would note that since the July meeting, we've gained $500,000 in discretionary funding due to being released from our obligation to the county for turfing the field at Lobe Field. So we're in a little bit better financial position. I wonder if, in addition to working on with the Port of Bremerton on wrapping up the several items from our existing ILA that have yet to be finalized, there was some discussion at some point about the Port of Bremerton front funding this project, and then we would repay the Port of Bremerton over some agreed upon period of time. Anybody else remember that?
Yes, that comment was made at the July meeting.
So it seems like we got a couple of things to work on with the Port of Bremerton, if the Port of Bremerton, you know, is willing to proceed down there to see if we can work out some arrangements, and then we would service that that debt over time by repaying the Port of Bremerton. And I'm not sure what their capability is to fund it up front.
Any other comment or discussion?
This isn't as much about this, but with the $500,000 that came back from the county, when I read that letter, did they kind of hint that they had something else planned that they might want to see done with that money?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I thought they mentioned something else that they'd like to discuss later with us. I'm gonna have to go back and look.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Highlighted on the screen that I'm sharing is something that Brian pointed out to me, which was clause 6 in the ILA with the port, that was conditions and contingencies for the port and us to accomplish if there was any further participation beyond phase 2. So that's highlighted there.
So those are the items that we've noted need to be completed.
Yes. If there's going to be a discussion of anything beyond phase 2, this is what needs to be completed.
Okay.
Mike, I have a question on item 6D, the review by Department of Commerce. When we've dealt with them, you've dealt with them on our other 3 projects that we're working on, didn't we kind of get a wave off from them? Not that it wouldn't be required, but that it wouldn't be required right now.
Correct. I talked with the Department of Commerce first about the CNW port project, and I got a report back from them that said at the point that you're going to A, sell bonds, or B, start construction, then we'll take a look at it. When we went back and talked about the 3 projects that are under ILA that we've made some financial commitments to, I went through the same process with them. They studied it, looked at it, originally said that they would do a staged 3-part feasibility review, but that was before COVID started. And 2 or 3 months into that, they came back and said, at this point, we don't anticipate doing any feasibility reviews for your projects at this time. So I think we need to be farther down the road to either selling bonds or committing a project to construction before we get involved with the Department of Commerce.
So Brian, what does that mean? You know, if we further investigate a possible arrangement with the Port of Bremerton regarding the circuit in the Northwest, would 6D not be required?
Correct. If we can document what Mike just said through emails or letters.
Yeah, I have email.
Let me finish, Mike, please. If we can document it by letters or emails that they've done this preliminary analysis as to this project, then I think we can document our file that 6D did not need to be completed at this time.
Okay, so Mike, you can forward that information over to Brian for review.
Sure.
Great. Any of the other ones outside of Port of Bremerton to do?
Or the DOC?
No, this A through G on this list on number 6.
What are the provisions of, I'm looking at item 6F, the provisions of the RCW. I don't know what that means.
That's a reference to a section in the Interlocal Agreement Act that requires within the interlocal agreement 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that normally we put into an ILA. So you have to have a statement of a duration. If the 2 public agencies are creating a 3rd agency to administer a program, you have to identify, who that 3rd agency is, which I don't think comes into play with us. You have to state in the ILA its purpose or purposes, which we always do. In the ILA, you have to state the manner of financing the joint or cooperative undertaking, and maintaining a budget for that. So we would put in that type of provision, which we normally do. And you have to have a provision in the ILA that says how do you terminate the agreement, and we do that in our ILAs, and how you dispose of any property upon termination. So if for example, two agencies get together and they buy a piece of land to do a joint project, and then the project falls apart, you need to address in advance how you're going to dispose of that land. But again, that's wouldn't be particularly relevant here, where the port owns the land and the PFD funding really goes to improving the land. So that's the guts of the statutory reference there.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Darren, there was an attendee with the hand up.
I see that. Thank you, Tom. I just wanted to make sure that the board was able to have the discussion first.
I'd be curious to see if it might be relevant to the discussion.
Okay. I do plan to call on Mr. Rothland. Anything else?
So I think there was a motion tabled from July. Is there anything that we have to do with further action on said motion?
I don't think we can, right? Until we get verification that phase 6 is, or these requirements are made, then, I don't think we could make a motion until we get verification. But once they are, then I would say that a motion would be appropriate at that time, one way or the other.
Did we have a motion in July?
That was yours, wasn't it, Aaron?
I didn't make a note of it in the minutes. I think there was the consideration for one, but the tabling took that action off the table. I don't think you actually ever moved.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Somebody share with me what the details. I was not present at that meeting.
Mike, do you want to provide those, or you?
In the July meeting, Axel Stracklejohn from the port was, no, this was after that. Presentation had been made by the people at CNW and the port. And the following meeting, Aaron brought that up and began consideration of a motion. There was some discussion around that there were not all of the members present. We were missing a Bainbridge Island representative. And Aaron agreed at that time not to put the motion forward. And then we went on to another item on the agenda.
Yeah. I think someone's telling me via text that I might have had the motion tabled. So, and I hate to tell you that I don't recall how we did it, but even if it's been tabled, then it still sits tabled while we wait for these items to be completed, correct?
We have the meeting recorded on video, so it will be easy for us to go back and look exactly what happened.
Okay.
Let's recognize Mr. Rothland at this time. Mike, can you bring him in? He would like to make a comment, and I'd like to recognize that.
Hang on 1 second, and I will bring both in if they're there, or...
Well, Mike's doing that. Let me add to the last discussion. I went back and found the July minutes. There's a discussion about the Port of Bremerton project, and the very last sentence says the motion was not put forward. So there was no motion made.
Thank you, Brian.
In July.
Do we have them in yet?
I don't see them.
I don't see
Oh.
them.
Here we go. Here we go.
Okay.
Axel, you're still, there you go.
Hello. We hear you.
You may want to put your video on.
Thanks. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is kind of weak out here. So I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi just crashed. Axel Strecklejohn, Commissioner with the Port, not Axel Rothland.
I wondered if you'd, no, never mind.
Would you like to make a comment?
Jim, we've lost Axel, Jim.
Yeah. Can you see me? I'm looking like I'm blank.
We cannot see you.
No, I've got a black screen.
That's interesting. Okay. Well, I not sure what Axel had comments on. I don't have any specific comments. This is all new to me as I'm hearing this, so I guess I'm trying to understand. So these items that you had listed are items that were not completed from the original ILA. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Okay. Okay. I wasn't clear if that was a new thing or an old thing. So I don't have the ILA in front of me or anything. So I don't. As I'm looking at it, I'm not privy to what the RCWs that are specific to that document. But if this is pretty standard things, I don't really see any issues with anything that's there. So just so that I'm clear, you just need responses to these A through G items, and then the ILA is complete. So then you can move forward about talking about additional funding. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? Just so I got it clear. Okay. I mean, I don't see any issues with that. I think it's all pretty standard.
Well, Jim, except that 6A is the mutual adoption of a funding protocol. So I think the port and the PFD probably need to agree on that in order to satisfy this requirement.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what that means, to be honest with you, Walt.
Well, Norm, am I.
I'm sure the attorneys who put it together can clarify it for us.
Because if this is an ILA that's already been completed, if I'm understanding. So, not sure what a funding protocol would mean.
Mike, you're on mute.
There's Axel. Mike, were you trying to say something?
Mike, you're still on mute.
In the meantime, Brian, I know you were party to drafting this, correct? Can you give us a little background as to what A is actually outlining?
I'll do my best without going back to my notes from 2018. The idea was with that ILA in 2018 was not to do a full ILA that we normally do with a lot of components about what do you have to do to get the money? When you get the money, what's the funding process? Do we have any oversight? Whatever. So I think the notion of A was simply before money was given out again, we would have to go back and adopt something more substantial as to what the money's for, how it's again paid out, how it's verified, how it's accounted for, and we've essentially done that in the other ILAs. You know, we've required separate accounting, separate accounts, separate accounting. I think we pay when the other entities spend money. You know, so if they said they're going to do a feasibility analysis and they're going to hire someone, it's like, okay, you consult with us on who you've hired, you hire them, they do the work, you pay them, we pay you back, sort of thing. So I think that's the basic mechanism of the funding protocol.
So Brian, that would be for the upcoming ILA, not for the one that we've already completed. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to understand what's being asked. Are we trying to complete the old ILA so we can move forward on whether or not another one is even needed? Or what are we trying to accomplish here? So that you guys can do what you're trying to do?
So my take is that the 2018 ILA was for something called Phase 2 funding. It was kind of a truncated, single, limited purpose ILA, and that's done.
Okay.
But paragraph 6 said, if the port comes back for further funding requests, we're not going to do it the same way we just did it here on a truncated basis. We're going to adopt something that's more formal, more substantial, has more, you know, meat on the bones than what we did in 2018. And again, it's something that we do on our side with our ILA partners, and we've done it with you know, the 3 projects that were selected to receive funding. So in a sense, it's probably and with those 3 other projects, we basically told them, we don't want to have different deals with each of you. We want to standardize our deals, our protocols as much as possible. So, and so they're pretty uniform. There's a tweak here, a tweak there for some special circumstance. So I think really on your side, your team probably needs to look at, you know, the Paulsbo ILA, the county ILA, the Port Orchard ILA, one or all of them, and see, oh, this is what the KPFD wants from us if we want money from them.
Okay, that makes sense. But I guess so you're saying, because wasn't the funding approved before the ILA is actually being put together, or you're saying the ILA is put together before we even know if funding is approved? That seems like that's backwards.
Yeah, it's usually the protocol is there's an agreement in principle to funding, and it's subject to negotiating an ILA.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think what your attorney Frank and I were thinking back in November, you know, 2 years ago when we were putting this thing together, and it was kind of on an expedited basis. There was some reason why there was a kind of a big push to get it done quickly. I think we were thinking we in this document, we really should try to be thinking ahead as to what are the next steps going to be when the port comes back for more money. And so let's put it in here now and kind of spell out what the relationship will be for the next round of funding.
Right, but doesn't it make sense to do like you did with the other projects, to approve the funding so that it doesn't really make sense to me to make an agreement when I don't even know if there's an agreement to be made. So I guess we're kind of waiting to hear from the commission whether or not this funding is something they want to move forward on.
Yeah, and what I'm suggesting is like for the funding protocol, I'd say go look at what's in the other ILAs and come back and say, oh yeah, we can do that. Okay, then we know that we're not going to have an issue negotiating the ILA with you. We'll already have an agreement in concept. So when we sit down to do the actual ILA, we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from a point of common agreement that here's how we're going to do the funding protocol.
It just seems backward. I mean, is that what you did? Because what I'm hearing is with the other projects, you went the other way. You approved the funding first, and then you put the ILA together. It just doesn't make sense to come up with an agreement when we're not even clear as whether there's something to be agreed upon. I mean, I'm looking at those documents, and that's pretty standard. I don't see any issues with putting something like that together. When the correct process be to first approve the funding and then put the ILA together?
That's
Jim,
what we do. That's what we do. I think we're talking at cross purposes. Even the 2018 ILA, the board, I think the board, no, you guys didn't approve the funding till, you approved the funding before the ILA was signed, but it was kind of an iterative process. The board wanted to see an ILA before they made the final approval. So if I had to describe it in layman's term, I think what happened in the fall of 2018 is the board said, well, we like this project, we'd like to put some money into it, but we need an agreement and so on. So our board was willing to go forward tentatively to fund, but they wanted an agreement in place, and I think the port was the same way.
And Jim, just to speak to it as well, I believe all three ILAs that we've signed with Port Orchard, with Paulsbo, with Kitsap County, all have gone in the same format of finishing the ILA and then approval of funding.
Thanks, Darren.
So, hey, Mike, will you put the 6 items, number 6 back up, or number 6, whatever it was?
I'd like to give Axel an opportunity to speak. He had his hand up first and got knocked off the line. But Axel, what did you want to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I think our Wi-Fi is a bit stretched here this evening. So just a bit of back the bus up a little bit for review purposes. So, our request was for 1.4 million for infrastructure to access the public area in which you want to transition the current use from the airport side over transition to across the highway side. So with that, the commission has supported fronting the $1.4 million with a payback over time through tax revenues through the PFD. So that's kind of, I know there's some question back and forth between Aaron and some of you as to what the history was. And yes, it was tabled back in July. That is a correct statement. As far as the ILA goes, we have our attorney here this evening. She has had her hand up for quite a while, and she's, if you'd like to call on her for any clarification, but we have no problem following through and moving forward with an agreed ILA. And of course, striking item probably D and F are probably easy line outs for us. So that's pretty much all I have, and thank you.
All right. Could we add Ryan?
Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Montgomery. I'm general counsel for the Port of Bremerton. And I raised my hand initially when Axel got kicked off the meeting here, but in looking at the items that the district is looking to be completed before they go ahead with this, I wanted to mention that the documentation that was provided by the port and by Circuits in the Northwest back in July answers most, if not all, of these questions. I think Axel just answered the first one, and if we take out item D, the information has been provided. If you need to have it again, we can certainly provide that, but I think these items can all be checked off, and the port is essentially ready to move forward.
All right. So in summary, we will have all of those items finished off by the port and then continue the discussion at that point. Am I correct in understanding the will of the board and the back and forth between the Port of Bremerton and our council as well?
So let me make sure from what Ms. Montgomery just said. So you're feeling that the information's there, it's just not maybe complete in one place, but everything's done? Ann?
You're on
From
mute.
what I see of what was put up on the shared screen, that information's already been provided, and we'd be happy to provide it again. But most of that information was in the packet that was provided back in July.
Okay, so what is our expectation from the port then? We know that we've got to make sure we've got the Commerce Department part covered. Are we asking for a recap to take out all the other line items to show they've been completed? So ILA 2 is done? I'm asking the rest of the board here.
Yeah, I would say if Anna, if you don't mind, maybe just submitting that summary of things to Brian, so Brian can verify that everything's met, and maybe at the next meeting he can confirm that, and then whatever motion wants to be made upon on that would be the appropriate way to go.
Thank you, Phil. We will be happy to do that.
All right.
So, and then let me make sure I understood from what Axel just said, that for this million four, it's a little shy of $1.5 million that we're discussing here. Did I understand that that could be something that the Port of Bremerton does put up front and then is paid back over time by the public facilities?
Yes.
Did we lose him? Yes. If that, yes, I can tell you that the commissioners have talked about in public meetings already and stated that if that was something that would be where it would help PFD move this forward, yes, they'd be willing to do that.
Okay, so, and that's great. That's really good news. Is it appropriate then for me to at least put a motion out there that we have this that idea put together and moved on at the next meeting?
I don't think that would ask for a motion or require a motion. I think we've already given directive to or in agreement with the port that they would put forward the answers to those specific pieces of the ILA, and Brian will review and we'll be informed of that and then take action.
I think before we're ready to vote on a thumbs up or thumbs down on some potential agreement, one, we need to confirm the amount. I've heard 1.4, I've seen 1.499. So how much we actually talking about? And then importantly for us, how would the payback work? Over what period of time? Would there be an interest rate involved? So we need to run that against our cash flow projections and make sure that we're not creating a problem for ourselves. And I think we need that information before the directors can, or the board members can vote yes or no.
So is that something that the Port of Bremerton, if they're going to be fronting this money, would be asking us setting up the parameters on the interest rate or however?
Well, I think we knew what the port's expectations are. Is it going to be paid back over 5 years, 10 years? Is there an interest rate associated with it? So we know what we're buying into.
Okay.
I think for me to be able to move on that or have further discussion as well, as I wasn't part of that board when those decisions were made, is also to understand this board's intentions with the other 3 projects. As I read the current ILAs, they don't take to full capacity of what we potentially could fund via the bonding and some of the forecasts I've seen. But I would need some further discussion amongst us on what our intentions are there, so I could know what money's available to the port.
Okay.
And just to note, we can be flexible there. I think ideally what the port is looking to do is when we put this money up, we will probably bond the majority of it, but to set the bond payments equal to what would work for the PFD as far as repayment. So if it's a 5-year payback, we would set up bonding there. If it needed to be a 10-year, we could set up a bond there. So we have flexibility depending on what you guys are looking to do.
And John, in response to that too, that was our intention with item number number 5D from our update from our financial advisor, was to at least give you the understanding of what kind of funding does the PFD believe that we have available to us. And then the reason to look at those other projects was to give you that understanding of what would that total commitment be and what is our intention with those other projects, so that we can answer, is there money available for this as a consideration?
And I think my last question of the port, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place for that or later, would be if we're finishing, I believe this ask was for design and construction planning fee. How does the port plan on ensuring the public portion funding for the project as well?
Is that tied into this ILA also? Wasn't that item?
That's a
B?
condition of the ILA as well.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think we've talked over the pieces that we can talk over, and so at this point, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Can I have
Yes.
one last question, Mike?
Sure.
Mike Walton, were you able to talk to? I think it's Alan. I know he didn't make the earlier meeting. Will he be on the next one?
Yes, he will. I talked to Alan, and that was on me. I had put that on the agenda originally, but I had forgotten that I had spoken to Alan, and he was going to compile some more information and have some more detail available on December. When Darren had talked to me about making sure that all of the board members were going to be there, he had also said about having Alan there, and I didn't close the loop. So Alan was not on call for that meeting, and I'll take the blame for that. But he will be available in December.
Okay, and just make sure we all get the info beforehand so we've had time to look at it.
Yeah, will do. He said he would probably have the preliminary stuff in about 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Our meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you all.
Thank you, Axel and Jim and everybody, and you're all gone, and it's